Carson Wentz traded to Indianapolis. Really the reason I'm doing a show this week. I'm heading down to Illinois to spend some time with my fiance's family down there. So I wasn't sure I was going to get a podcast up. I was originally just going to do an exclusive draft grades video, but then this thing shook down and I was like, all right, I gotta react, right? I gotta break this thing down because this is league changing. This changes the future landscape of two organizations in the NFL. This is really exciting stuff. So Carson Wentz traded to the Indianapolis Colts for a third-round pick this year and a future, not compensatory pick, a future conditional pick, which is a second-round pick. But if Wentz plays 75% of the team's offensive snaps next year, it is going to be a first-round pick. And man, like I said, this changes the landscape of both organizations. And I'm going to start just from the Colts perspective, and then we'll get into the Eagles perspective. But over the last month or so, as it's been floated back and forth on if Wentz was going to get traded, I've been taking the stance that's been an unpopular stance, by the way, for some reason, that whoever acquires Carson Wentz is going to walk away a winner in the trade, because the quarterback market is very, very thin right now. And yeah, Carson Wentz just last year was not good. There was about 6-7 games last year where he looked like a garbage can playing quarterback. And I get that. There is a chance that you're acquiring that. And that's why he didn't end up costing a first-round pick this year. That's why it is a conditional pick to be a first-round pick next year. So I understand all of that. But look at the teams that didn't trade for Carson Wentz and ask yourself, who's better off at quarterback moving forward? The Colts or the Bears? The Colts or the Washington football team? The Colts or the New England Patriots? And now that it's done, I think people are finally realizing, like, okay, yeah, actually it does make a lot of sense to trade for Carson Wentz, who, excluding his rookie season, has played, 4 years, or if you just want to include his rookie season where he was not that bad, let's say 4 out of his 5 years he's been a top 20 quarterback. I would say 2 out of those 5 he's been a top 10 quarterback. One of those he was an MVP candidate. Last year was ugly, absolutely ugly, but he just turned 28. He's worked with Frank Reich, who was his offensive coordinator when he was playing at that MVP level. He's got all these athletic traits, and he's going to come in with this breath of fresh air and this chip on his shoulder mentality. And I think you're going to get a top 15 quarterback in the building with weekly elite upside. Now, you might get some stinkers. It just might be the case. Carson Wentz just isn't going to have the consistency to be an elite quarterback. And, that's actually fine if you're the Colts, because, yeah, he might not be an elite quarterback. You might not be trading for Patrick Mahomes or, Deshaun Watson here, but at least you don't have to start Jacoby Brissett. At least you don't have to start Ryan Fitzpatrick, who's just a less explosive version of Carson Wentz, who's going to give you that weekly variance. Like I said, would you rather be in the Colts' shoes with a dart throw at a potential Super Bowl winning quarterback like Carson Wentz, who's played at an MVP level with your current offense coordinator? Or would you rather be the Chicago Bears sitting there with the 20th pick and Nick Foles as your quarterback with a great defense saying, like, what the hell are we doing at quarterback? At least the Colts recognized that you got to take chances if you want to be great in this league. It's like the theme of this podcast at this point. The Colts very well may be going to the Super Bowl if Carson Wentz works out, because they were that quarterback away. You know who's not going to the Super Bowl next year? Washington football team. I'm sorry, Taylor Heineke ain't going to take you to the Super Bowl next year. The Bears. Yeah, Nick Foles, Jacoby Brissett, Andy Dalton. Sorry, he's not taking you to the Super Bowl next year. The Broncos. I don't think Drew Lock is going to turn the corner and take you to the Super Bowl next year. Maybe he does. He's kind of a different situation. The Patriots. Maybe Mac Jones becomes Tom Brady and he gets you there. But man, if you're the Indianapolis Colts, you at least have upside at that quarterback position that could give you that quarterback that can make you an elite team. he really does have that upside, and I believe that he can turn things around. Now, people want to focus on last year. I have been very honest over the last 2 seasons, not just last year, that Doug Peterson had to go. His play calling was just abhorrent. Like, no team in the NFL had less of a clue what the hell was going on schematically than the Philadelphia Eagles over the last 2 years. And I don't put that on Carson Wentz. I put that on Doug Peterson. Like, the amount of times that people were just doing the wrong stuff, like the most simple stuff. It was like an elementary school play where the kids are coming out and they're, saying the wrong lines, wearing the wrong costumes. That's what the Philadelphia Eagles have looked like offensively under Doug Peterson for the last 2 years. The Indianapolis Colts are the opposite. They are a well-run machine. And Carson Wentz, it's going to be just a breath of fresh air to come in and be like, all right, we have a system in place. I have a sound offensive line that understands what's going on. We're all on the same page with our offensive coordinator here. My receivers are running the right routes. And now I can focus on myself instead of trying to be the hero here and save all of this. Because if you look at what he did in 2019, where he was actually pretty special, that Eagles team had no business going to the playoffs. So this is just a season ago. Carson Wentz had some spectacular games and, in my opinion, really got them into the playoffs and out of a lot of ruts and out of a lot of trouble. And then that just reached like the worst case scenario in 2020. So I do believe there's a decent chance that Carson Wentz figures things back out and comes into Indianapolis. Now, yeah, there's some accuracy concerns. There's, he's not the quickest at getting rid of the football. I do think Frank Reich will work with him on a lot of that stuff. They did a great job with Andrew Luck. Kind of speeding up how quickly he got rid of the ball. And I think they'll take a similar approach with Carson Wentz with this new offense that they have here. So, yeah, he's got some problems. He will play some hero ball at times. There might be weeks where he just doesn't have it, where he doesn't have his fastball and his accuracy downfield is off, or he fumbles the ball, holding onto the ball too long. That might happen. But you know what also might happen? You still win 10, 11, 12 games despite him laying some of those stinkers, and then you get into the playoffs and you get the good version of Carson Wentz that was still out there in a few games last year. Pittsburgh, San Francisco, the Cleveland game, kind of right before he got benched. There was some games in there where Carson Wentz still looked like his old self, but it was the bad games that people want to focus on. So for me, for the Colts, you get the upside of quarterback that the other teams that were in this quarterback market are sitting there twirling their thumbs, saying okay, do we have to draft Kyle Trask now, the 6th best quarterback in this class, who's definitely not a first-round prospect? Meanwhile, you're sitting here with at least optimism and a chance at greatness. Yeah, the Colts said it could have signed Jameis Winston or Ryan Fitzpatrick. All these names I've heard floated out there for the Colts, and I'm just scratching my head, literally saying, how as a fan of the Colts, who you just had your decent year, right? You're not a team like the Browns who were happy to just get back into the playoffs. No offense, Browns fans, your expectations are changing moving forward, but the Colts as an organization and the Colts fans shouldn't be sitting there saying, how can we win 10 games to get into the playoffs and lose to the Bills again? That shouldn't be what the Colts are thinking. They should be thinking, what can we do to beat the Bills next year, to beat the Chiefs? And Carson Wentz, if you can get back what he was a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, what he's been the majority of his career, and not last year that was just a complete disaster in Philadelphia, you have a chance to do those things. So I love this move for the Colts. And the beauty is they played the long game here. They played the market super well. They kind of hedged their bets that other teams weren't going to trade first-round picks this year, which sounds like it did not happen. They hung in there. They played hardball, and they got a steal of a trade. This is another thing that is underrated about this, is the Colts, from a front office point of view here, really maximize the value here by letting the market play out. And that future pick, I do think in all reality, it does end up being the Colts' first-round pick next year. But here's the beauty. If this isn't working out and Carson Wentz really is broken, you think they're going to be able to know that by week 10, week 11? Yeah, I do. And there's no way they're going to keep playing him if they're really struggling. and he's not the guy, well, then you go to Jacob Eason, who at that point will have had plenty of time to develop. You spent a, third, fourth round pick on him last year. He's got a rocket arm. You go to Jacob Eason, see what he's got, and they have no money tied to Carson Wentz. They can just cut Carson Wentz. This is like the dream, basically high risk, low reward trade for the Colts to get a chance, even if he doesn't work out. We're going to do my draft grades here later in this show, and a lot of the quarterback grades I give B's and A's because the risk is worth the reward. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, but finding that quarterback is so important in the NFL. And if this thing doesn't work out, you lose a third round pick this year, whatever. The Colts are an amazing drafting team. A fifth round pick for the Colts is like a third round pick for most teams with the way they draft. And, you lose a second round pick next year. The Dolphins lost a second round pick to take a chance on Josh Rosen. No one even remembers that. So it's going to be like nothing if this doesn't work out. And that the final point I want to make here about the Colts is something I've heard a lot out there is, how do you take on that contract? How do you take on Carson Wentz's massive $34 million a year contract? He's not that player. Hello? You don't pay that if you're the Colts. You pay him $22 million per year for the next 3 seasons. If this works out, not only did you get a top 15 quarterback with weekly elite upside on a bargain for your picks, you're getting him on a bargain contract, and he's not going to have a whole lot of leverage to sit there and demand a restructure, at least within the next year and a half. So the Colts don't acquire this massive overpay that the Eagles had. The Eagles actually have to eat $34 million in dead cap, and the Colts have no financial ties to him other than his base salary. So, no, the Colts aren't overpaying for Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz is going to be paid like a bottom 10 starting quarterback. He's getting paid like Teddy Bridgewater next year. So this is all around just a slam dunk for the Colts. There was Colts fans that didn't want to do this, and I've been trying to tell you for 2 weeks, this is about as best case scenario for the Colts as it was going to get. Maybe trading for Sam Darnold would have been better, but we don't actually know if the Colts or if the Jets want to do that at this point in time. So I would go get Carson Wentz, who's played much better football than Sam Darnold. It's really a win-win-win-win-win for the Indianapolis Colts, and I'm super stoked for the Colts next year. I think that this puts them right in the race with the Chiefs and the Ravens and all these top teams, the Bills. Now it could flop, but we just talked about how quickly they'll be able to move on from it if it flops. So unbelievable move for the Colts. If there's any Colts fans complaining about this, I really want to know why. Like, why? Because I have seen that. I want to know why you don't like this. Like, did you really want to sign Jameis Winston and win 9-10 games and just wait till he has a bad game in the playoffs and then be sitting in the same exact position next year? Like, I don't get why people were so against trading for Carson Wentz. So I think this is an amazing move for the Colts. A++ trade. This just shocks up my excitement for the Colts for next year. So I'm cheering for Carson Wentz, especially as someone that's kind of stand the idea that this was a good move. And sure enough, after it happened on Twitter, I saw some much more positive tweets as opposed to before it happened, when the consensus was, oh my God, how could you trade for Carson Wentz? He was a garbage can at quarterback last year. Yeah, it's not just about last year. Players have down years, especially when their team is a big of a mess as the Eagles were last year. So great on the Colts. Now let's talk this from the Eagles' perspective, where it's a lot more head scratching to me. And the only reason this makes any sense for the Eagles to me is this really must have become a toxic environment between Wentz with Jalen Hurts there and the front office and the new coaching staff. It really must have been a situation where they're like, we just kind of want to move on. Like, it's just not working. Almost like when they fired Andy Reid in a lot of ways. We've had some fun, but there's clashing mentalities, and it's just not working. That's the only thing that can really explain this for me, because there's just so many things wrong with this move for the Eagles that leaves kind of a skid mark on this whole situation here for the Eagles. And while my hype for the Eagles is going up and skyrocketing, it's really going in the different direction for the Eagles. So I don't even know. Like, so they're gonna go with Jalen Hurts now moving forward. They have the 6th pick. They have an extra 3rd round pick. So they don't now have this immense draft capital probably to move up. I mean, maybe Atlanta isn't thinking Fields, and you could, swap 6 and 4 and give them an extra 3rd or something, and find a way to go up and get Justin Fields, maybe. But it really has the sense that they're going to stand by Jalen Hurts. And, maybe they have much more optimism for Jalen Hurts than I do. I am encouraged by the growth of Jalen Hurts, and I do like the progression that he's shown as a player over the last 2 years. His throwing mechanics and his accuracy have been just phenomenal. But I was talking about Jalen Hurts in my quarterback rankings. I think he is almost an identical player to Drew Lock for the Denver Broncos, where he's got great physical traits. He's a little faster, I would say. He's probably not quite as accurate down the field, although it's pretty close. But both these players, their problem is playing in structure. And there were some moments for Jalen Hurts, especially when he came out, beat the Saints, kind of shocked the world. But when I really dove into Jalen Hurts' tape, there's a lot of issues there. There's a lot of development still to do as far as playing in structure. And beyond that, it's leaning too much on his feet, bailing from clean pockets, not knowing when to kind of hang in there, let that deep dig develop, let that post route develop, let the comeback develop, look off safeties, the things that lead to high-level passing in the NFL. It just wasn't there from Jalen Hurts. It was, either that first read is open and I can kind of, deliver that, or I'm just going to run and kind of improvise and play hero ball, which is a lot of what Carson Wentz was doing too, to be fair. But personally, I don't think Jalen Hurts is going to come in next year and, earn this starting job. I think the most likely scenario is they stand by Jalen Hurts, which at this point, fine. Like, I think it's worth finding out what kind of development he can show next year. That's totally fair. But I think what's likely here is, turns out he's a good quarterback. He's maybe a low-level starter. He's maybe a high-level backup, something like that. He's somewhere in that, 25 to 35 range of quarterbacks, but they don't win a lot of games. And you're sitting there like the Broncos next year, or the Broncos right now with my comp for Hurts, which is Drew Lock, and you're just like, okay, what do we do here? Do we move up for a quarterback? Do we trade for a veteran like Carson Wentz? What's the plan here at quarterback? We're not going to go very far with Jalen Hurts, and I don't really see the future for the Eagles. And yeah, you're going to get the Colts first rounder next year, most likely. It's probably going to be a pick in the 20s. So, I mean, maybe they're sitting here next year and they're bad enough to go up and get one of the top quarterbacks next year. But all of a sudden, I think the Eagles are kind of stuck in purgatory. They have a lot of veterans that are not going to be particularly happy, I don't think, unless Hurts really balls out. But guys like Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, who have signed extensions to stay there, Darius Slay, who forced his way out of Detroit and was happy to sign an extension here in Philadelphia. Those guys, your Lane Johnson, Kelsey on the offensive line. There's been a lot of veterans here that really want to be great next year that might not be so happy about having a middling quarterback. And maybe Howie Roseman just is a genius, and this is a chess move where Jalen Hurts is just going to take off and be elite next year. I wouldn't hedge on that happening. If I was in the Eagles' shoes, I would be doing everything I could to go up and get a Justin Fields or a Zach Wilson in this draft. But that's not going to be easy to do, especially if you didn't get a first-round pick for Wentz this year. So I don't like the direction of the Eagles at this point in time. I thought they had a chance to kind of save Carson Wentz a little bit, getting him a playmaker with that 6th pick, get your offensive line back, a new offensive coordinator, get rid of Doug Peterson. But they go the route of moving on from Wentz. And it's going to be definitely fascinating to see how it plays out, but I don't think the Eagles are going to be very good next year. And I think Hurts is good enough that he might get them to constantly be kind of questioning themselves at the quarterback position. We see this all the time, right? With quarterbacks like Drew Lock, like the Washington team with Dwayne Haskins last year. We're going to see it, I think, moving forward with Tua a little bit. Like teams convince themselves that they can win with the quarterback they have, when in reality they should be looking to upgrade. And I'm really worried that the Eagles are going to get into that situation because I think Hurts can play, but he's got a lot of issues as well. So I don't know. You can tell the change of tone in my voice that I don't see this working out for the Eagles. I think Wentz is going to be really good for the Colts and really make the Eagles look stupid for this. And my kind of trust and I guess benefit of the doubt that I've given towards the Eagles organization since they won that Super Bowl, it's completely disappeared. And to the point where I'm starting to lean towards saying that the Eagles are one of the worst run organizations in all of the NFL. And I like Howie Roseman as a scout, but he's really had a rough couple years as a general manager. And this is, I think, another step back for the Eagles organization. So maybe Jalen Hurts is the guy and proves me wrong. I just have my doubts. So there's the breakdown on the trade. I think the Colts stole the show here, and the Eagles are not looking great.